Hello and welcome to Projector, and on this episode, Eddie Murphy and Pete Davidson are driving like they stole it in the heist comedy The Pickup. On the day of his 25th anniversary to his wife Natalie, played by Eva Longoria, Russell, played by Eddie Murphy, finds himself being assigned rookie partner Travis, played by Pete Davidson, on a long route with signal dead zones. There they find their truck is attacked by a gang of thieves, led by Keke Palmer's Zoe, who Travis had a hookup with the night before. When Russell and Travis take out her partners, Zoe improvises and forces them to help her in her $60 million casino heist. We've talked before about the Eddie Murphy career rollercoaster, and it's been a recurring feature on this channel for the last 15 years. Murphy is undoubtedly one of the greatest comedy talents of our time, but everyone knows the quality of his projects is wildly variable. His highs are legit classics like Coming to America, but his lows are infamous duds like Pluto Nash or 1,000 Words. And right now, Murphy's on a bit of a high. After a long fallow decade where he was largely off our screens, Murphy has had a bit of a comeback, largely on streamers like Netflix and Prime Video. Dolomite's My Name was Murphy's best film in decades, and he even finally got the fourth Beverly Hills Cop made, which was stuck in development hell for so long that some people, by which I mean me, doubted it would ever get made. And you know what? Axel F was pretty good, and it showed that Murphy could still carry an R-rated action comedy even in his 60s. The Pickup continues in that vein, and this is Murphy continuing to return to his roots. His first films, 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop, practically invented the action comedy, where Murphy was pure comic anarchy and the action was outrageous, but it had a hard edge to it at times. It's a particularly popular subgenre on streamers as it's an easy programmer. Just put a couple of A-listers in it, rack up the explosions, and you got some easy viewing for a night in. They're usually spy comedies or heist movies. The Pickup feels like it's Amazon's easy alternative to not having Axel F over at Netflix, but it could just as easily be a fill-in for not having Matt Damon in Apple TV Plus's The Instigators. The Pickup even makes clear very early on what it aspires to be, with a gag where the Pointer Sisters' Neutron dance, famously used in Beverly Hills Cop, starts playing on Travis's speaker to Russell's dislike. I actually cringed a bit when that happened, because that's a big comparison to call attention to, not least of which because The Pickup ain't exactly up to the level of Beverly Hills Cop. No, this is much more on the level of, say, Metro, although I suppose it could be worse. That's still better than Beverly Hills Cop 3. And yeah, coming into this expecting Axel F was a bit of a mistake on my part, because consistency has never been Murphy's strong suit. And that almost certainly includes Murphy's own performances. When Murphy's on form, he's utterly electric and he can transform a scene with his presence. But when he's clearly not engaged with the material, he can scarcely hide his own boredom. The weird bit about The Pickup, which he also produced by the way, is that you somehow get both of these Murphys in the same movie depending on the scene. I think part of this is the role. When he did the aforementioned comedies in the 80s, he was the young upstart. He was the street smart one who was coming in and causing trouble. But obviously now the roles have been reversed. He's kind of the Nick Nolte type at this point, the world-weary older partner. It's not a new change. Again, the dynamic with Davidson is like the one in Metro with Michael Rappaport, but it's a much straighter role for Murphy, and I don't think it's one that he thrives in. So he spends a lot of The Pickup in fairly subdued form. His character just wants to punch through his shift, follow procedure, and get back to his wife to celebrate their anniversary, whilst also eyeing a nice retirement and opening up a bed and breakfast somewhere. He's cranky, but it's not really funny cranky like we know Murphy can do. It's hard to tell if his weariness is him trying to play the character or if he's bored at not really being given all that much to do. But then, every so often, Murphy will have a moment where he seems to come to life and score a laugh, and cuts loose from playing it straight. There's a couple of moments where he's obviously allowed to improv a bit, or he's mugging about how everything aches after doing the action, or there's a bit in the diner where he starts singing the theme tune to Shaft. They're precious fleeting moments that show just how much funnier Murphy is than he's being allowed to be. We don't come to see see Eddie being the straight man, we come to see Eddie be funny. Hell, I even thought of a slight rewrite which would have made things way more interesting. What if the fact that he wanted to celebrate his anniversary and retire, and then he suddenly gets robbed, he just snaps. He's had up to here with this shit, and he'll go crazy just to get home. I'm basically describing Dabney Coleman in short time, but that's way more interesting and gives Murphy something to work with. It doesn't really help that Murphy doesn't really gel with Pete Davidson. You'd think they would, given they're both SNL alums from different eras, but the chemistry isn't really there, and that is absolutely pivotal to a buddy movie like this. Davidson is playing the role like we've come to expect from him, the goofy screw-up, but he's playing it to the hilt here, trying to carry the brunt of the film's comedy, which is really going to depend on your tolerance for him. The film gets off to a rough start with its very first scene, where Davidson's Travis first encounters Palmer's Zoe at a bank while he's on the job, and she tries to hand him a note with her number, and he suddenly panics and pulls a gun on her, screaming for everyone to get down on the ground! And Davidson is really mugging and playing it over the top, trying to get it to work, but it's terribly forced and stupid. It just isn't funny. And that's not even getting into the optics of that moment, which clearly no one really thought about, so let's just put that aside. Yeah, that's a total misstep right out of the gate. Not amusing, makes no sense, and sours you on both his character and the film immediately. Oh, and given that she's his love interest, their meet cute is him pulling a gun on her. Wow! It's so stupid that the movie even has to call attention to how idiotic it is several times, because obviously the plot requires Zoe to seduce Travis in order to extract information from him for the heist, and he's such a love-struck puppy that he becomes a total blabbermouth. And needless to say, he doesn't even think about the fact that she's still speaking to him, let alone the fact that she's taking him out on a date and sleeping with him after he, and I hate to keep repeating this, pulled a gun on her isn't any way strange or suspicious. I feel like where you're at the point where the characters are having conversations pointing out the holes and contrivances in the plot to try and get a laugh out of it, you probably need to do a total rewrite. Anyway, Travis is a bit of a loser who has this job because he flunked the police academy out of a family of cops. But he's the kind of idiot that you get in comedies like this. He's really dumb, except for the moments where the plot requires him to not be, so he does have skills in defensive driving and in maths. His ability to instantly calculate sums in his head is a running gag, and they even have a sound effect for it, but it never actually has a payoff. If you're going to borrow that bit from The Hangover, at least you could have remembered that Alan finally used it to count cards. The pickup doesn't even give us that. I'm being a little harsh because Davidson does have his moments where he made me chuckle, but then there will be other bits where he just farts in the cab to try and score a cheap laugh. And again, I don't think this is the kind of role that plays to his strengths as a performer. When Davidson marries his humour with a bit of a dramatic edge, like in Big Time Adolescence or The King of Staten Island, he's much better. But I don't really blame Murphy or Davidson so much as the fact that the script doesn't really offer them many opportunities to shine. The film's writers, Kevin Burrows and Matt Maida, previously of Netflix's The Package, have given this a very basic and generic setup that it feels like anyone could have been plugged into, and there's a lot of comedians and funny people in the cast who are similarly underutilised. Marshawn Lynch, who was hilarious in Bottoms, only gets a couple of scenes as a chop shop owner named Chop Shop. And Andrew Dice Clay plays Russell and Travis's gruff boss, who spends the entirety of the film getting cussed out and called an asshole, which is honestly the kind of Andrew Dice Clay performance I can really get behind. Eva Longoria is saddled with the largely thankless role of the wife, who gets one moment at the end and a feisty personality to try and make up for the fact that nearly her entire role in the film was to be threatened, kidnapped and knocked out. Which it doesn't, obviously. And watching some of the behind the scenes footage, it looks like everyone's having fun, but that hasn't really translated into the final product. Clearly they were hoping they would punch up the script in the same way that Murphy famously improvised his way through Beverly Hills Cop, but there's only so much you can do when a good chunk of it is the actors sitting in a cab together. Even the heist movie aspect isn't even exciting or dramatic. When Zoe convinces them to rob a casino, you'd expect all kinds of complications and mishaps to add to the comedy intention, but instead, it's a remarkably straightforward stroll into the vault. I was expecting things to kick up a notch at this point, that's happening in the run-up to this big MMA bout, but then it just doesn't. The only real complication is they run into one of the fighters, played by Roman Reigns for a single scene, who, for some reason, is having a photo shoot in the casino's actual vault. I have no idea why that would be happening, and then they just talk him away? Like, the heist is meant to be where something like this shines, but it's so underwhelming, like their budget got cut. Did they just run out of money and rewrite the whole last third of the movie? But again, you can't mine comedy out of it if everything goes swimmingly, and so Murphy is just largely standing around for this stretch of the film. But if someone is stealing this movie, it is undeniably Keke Palmer. Palmer's been on my radar ever since her fantastic performance in Nope, and she's bringing so much charisma to her part every time she's on screen. She makes it very understandable why Travis is defenseless to her charms and constantly swooning and excusing her, and the stuff between Palmer and Davidson is pretty amusing. Palmer is giving her A game to this, and it's rare to say that someone has managed to steal a movie from under Eddie Murphy, but she's managed it. She even manages to sell it when the writing again doesn't make sense. She spends a lot of the first half being quite ruthless and calculating, like the way she manipulates Travis or leaving her sidekicks in the dust, but then the movie has to try and make her sympathetic, so then they bring out the tragic backstory and hope the audience don't have a very long attention span. Speaking of those sidekicks, she mentions they're useless because they're clearly not okay after being kicked out of a truck at 90 miles per hour, which makes sense, except in this movie because they're somehow fine and are just cheesed off at getting left behind. So Jack Kesey's Banner and Ismael Cruz Cordova's Miguel are on a trail for revenge because this movie needs antagonists, even ones which should be in the hospital with several broken bones. Luckily, the action side in the pickup is pretty good. This is directed by veteran journeyman director Tim Story, who has directed everything from Tom and Jerry to Fantastic Four, but he's got a lot of experience in action comedies like the Ride-Along movies and the Taxi remake, so maybe it shouldn't be a surprise that there's more car stunts than you might expect for a heist caper. Sometimes Story frames them a bit flatly. The pickup has that slightly TV look of streaming movies, but there's some impressive slow motion car crashes. Probably the best sequence in the film is a lengthy action beat where Russell throws dye bags to fend off their pursuers, which go off in spectacular fashion. But a lot of this is second unit with the stunt team, with Murphy and Davidson largely in cutaway shots. Even Palmer is probably dubbing in her lines, given that her character is masked through these scenes. So it's weirdly a comedy that works best when the comics are off screen somehow. I'm probably making the pickup sound terrible, but it's not. It's just uninspired. It's far from the worst movie that Murphy's ever made, not even close on that count, but squandering a film with a cast this funny is practically a criminal offence in of itself. It's the kind of movie that has a running gag with a stuffed squirrel monkey that isn't funny when it's first introduced, let alone when they keep coming back to it repeatedly. It has a few amusing moments and some great car stunts, and that will probably be enough to pass 90 minutes, but it has that disposable feel of so many streaming movies that you'll have probably forgotten about it in a week. It hits the marks, but it never does anything special or well enough to stand out. If you want classic Murphy, then revisit 48 Hours or Beverly Hills Cop. Hell, even give Axel F a rewatch. Aside from Palmer, the pickup largely just steals your time without giving much back in return, and in that way, it's 2025's answer to Showtime. If you like this review and you want to support my work, you can give me a tip at my Ko-fi page, or my YouTube Super Thanks feature, which is right below the video. Or you can make a delivery over at my Patreon, where you can see my videos early among other perks, including access to my Discord server, and you can also join YouTube memberships for similar perks. Or you can just simply like, share and subscribe, it's really appreciated. Until next time, I'm Matthew Buck, fading out.